اتكلمنا امبارح طبعا على chapter 5 وقلنا ان هو كان بيتكلم alive as a taxi driver، صح؟ طيب خليني برضو اعمل فيدباك ليه ونشغله بس كده عشان نبدأ ناخد chapter 6 اللي هو مرتبط بيه، وعشان برضو يبقى الناس اللي هي غابت معانا امبارح تبقى برضو ايه حاضرة الكلام من اول وجديد. اوكي
مستر وكده مستر نبقى خلصنا الترم صح؟
بستة هنبقى خلصنا الترم كده خلاص.
طيب المراجعة يعني المراجعة هتكون ازاي؟
المراجعة بص بقى يا شهد، هنبدأ نعمل حاجة مهمة جدا، ان انا اجيب يونتين او يونت من الترم الاول على حسب ما هنتفق. يعني احنا هنعمل فوتنج كده، يونتين من الترم الاول ويونتين من الترم الثاني، نعمل ريفيجن نخبطهم في بعض كده ميكس على طول. تمام، انت حضرتك هتراجعي الكلمات او انا هنزل برضو الكلمات، وبعدين نعمل ريفيجن على الجرامر. الحصة اللي بعدها نعمل تيست عليهم، على الأربعة أو على الثلاثة زي ما هنتفق مع بعض. شوف انتوا حددوا معايا احنا محتاجين كام وحدة نراجعهم، فاهمين ازاي؟ تمام؟
تمام يا مستر.
اوكي. وغير كده كمان ان احنا هنبدأ برضو كمان اللي هو هنتدرب على نظام الامتحان اللي هو بتاع اللي هو الهوم اكزام وطريقته، وهعملها ازاي على الاونلاين، وهنبقى شغالين برضو. انا بجهز بس الداتا لسه، هفاجئكم يعني بالامتحانات يعني، بس هعملها جزء جزء يعني عشان خاطر نبقى برضو ايه خدت يونت 1 2 في الترم الاول مثلا 10 11 في الترم الثاني. حلو، عملنا عليهم الريفيجن، الحصه اللي بعدها تيست بنفس الطريقه اللي هي ايه الاونلاين. فاهمين ازاي كده يا جماعه؟ يبقى انا كده مسكت 4 وحدات، 2 اول و2 اخر. You understand؟ اوكي. برضه لو في
اوكي
حد عنده اي تعليق، عنده اي حاجه ممكن يقول ونتصرف يعني نظبطها مع بعض. الموضوع انا سايبه متاح ما بيننا كلنا. اوكي طيب نبدا بقى كده مع بعض. ادي بلاك بيوتي في شابتر 5. قلنا ان شابتر 5 لايف از تاكسي درايفر، وقلنا ان بلاك بيوتي suffered many troubles after he had sold. right؟ ماشي، كله بقى يركز معايا. الحمد لله على السلامة يا عبد الرحمن.
Life of a taxi food before he rode me for many kilometers towards London. It was getting dark and the lights were on in the streets when we arrived in the big city. There were streets to the left and streets to the right, and I thought we would never arrive. Finally, however, my owner gave a call and a door opened in a small house. A woman and 2 children ran out. "Is he gentle, father?" called the girl. "Yes, he's as gentle as you are. Come and say hello," he said. "Let me get him some food and water," said the woman, and I was taken into a comfortable stable. I think I'll be happy here, I thought. My new owners were called Jerry and Polly, and their children were Harry and Dolly, who were aged 12 and 8. They were all very happy people.
Jerry's family were very kind to the
Jerry owned
horse.
a
خدوا
taxi
بالكم
carriage
عشان هنبدأ في أسئلة
and
عليها
another
برضو
horse called Captain.
كفيدباك. يعني هيجي يقول لي
The
prove
next
that
day,
Jerry
Captain
was a
went
kind
out with the
man.
taxi carriage in the morning. Then it was my turn in the afternoon. Jerry was a very good driver and was very kind to me. He took me to a wide street.
This is the first situation. Okay. In the afternoon, in the morning he took Captain. Okay. In the afternoon he took Black Beauty, so he rested his horses. Okay. تمام، ده دليل ان هو راجل طيب. دي حاجة تانية. His family got the food for the horses and a comfortable stables. Okay. تمام. طيب هناخد برضو بالنا من الطريقة وأسلوبه.
where there were big houses and shops filled with food. There were many other taxis stopped outside the shops, waiting for passengers. The other drivers said hello to Jerry and then came to look at me. "He's too handsome to pull a taxi," said one. "Well," said Jerry, "I'll soon find out, won't I?" Then the owner of the taxi business came over, a tall man called Mr. Grant. He studied me as if he wanted to buy me. Then he said, "He's a good horse. He will do well for you, Jerry." The first few days of pulling a taxi were difficult. I did not find it easy in London. There was so much noise and so many people. It was difficult to find my way between all the other carriages, but in time, I began to trust Jerry and I stopped worrying. At the end of the day, I was given good food and fresh water. Harry always helped to look after me and worked as hard as a much older boy.
خدت بالكم هو بيقول إيه؟
And Polly and Dolly also came to see me often. Jerry was the best owner I have had. Jerry was always kind to me, but he was not always happy with his passengers. One day, 2 young men came out of a hotel and called him over. "Hey, taxi driver, we are late for our train."
خدوا بالكم هم هيعرضوا عليه اوفر دلوقتي. they offered 1 extra pound، يعني جنيه استرليني كمان زيادة to take them to the station very fast. Okay, but he refused. ليه؟ هنقول ان هو مش عايز يتعب الحصان بتاعه، لان هو دايما بيحب حصانه وبيحب يحافظ عليه. احنا هنمشي بسرعتنا العادية، ده اذا كان انتوا ده عاجبكم. اوكي، ده دليل برضو this situation prove that Jerry was a kind man, was a good man. Okay,
"Go as quickly as you can so we can catch the 1 o'clock train. We will give you an extra pound," said one of them. "I will take you, but only at our usual speed," said Jerry. Another taxi driver heard him and called out, "I'll go fast for you. He won't go fast because he loves his horse."
هو مش هيمشي بسرعة يا
The men
جماعة،
laughed
سيبوكم منه،
and jumped into the other taxi.
هو بيحب الحصان بتاعه.
"I must always think about my horse," said Jerry. "A pound won't help if it makes my horse too tired to take other passengers for the rest of the day." Jerry was a very good driver, and with a light pull of the reins, he drove me carefully among the carriages, horses, people, and taxis that filled the streets, some going one way, some the other. I always felt safe because I trusted Jerry.
نفس الجملة تاني.
Holidays were not
I
common
always
for
felt
taxi
safe,
drivers.
but I trusted
Many of the
Jerry.
taxi drivers did not own their horses, but hired them each day. That meant they had to work very long hours without a rest to get enough money. Some of them were not like Jerry and always had to work for 7 days a week. I felt sorry for both the horses and their drivers. One day, a carriage arrived outside a park where we were waiting to take a family home. The horse that pulled the carriage looked very thin and very old. She had sad eyes which looked at me
It
carefully.
was Ginger.
Black Beauty? She said quietly, and then coughed. It was Ginger. Ginger looked so very different. She told me about her life since we lived at Earlshall Park. First, a wealthy man bought her, but she was not able to run very fast after her fall, and she was soon sold again. She had many new owners, each one paying a little less money for her. Then I was bought by a man who has many horses and
خدوا بالكم من
hires
الراجل
them
ده.
to men who need them for taxi carriages, she continued. But I'm not strong enough for this work. The men hit me hard when they want me to go faster. I work every day without any break. You usually kick people who aren't good to you, I reminded her. I'm not strong enough to do that now, she said. Men are always stronger than me. If they can get me to work longer hours for more money, they will. I know life is difficult for them too. They always think about their families before they worry about their horses. At that moment, a man came up to her
خدوا
and
بالكم قلت
began
لكم ان
to
الراجل
drive
دوت
her
he was
away.
Mr. Skinner. هنعرفه في
Goodbye,
الشابتر اللي
Black
جاي على طول.
Beauty, she said. You've always been my best friend. I never saw poor Ginger again. I worked hard for Jerry all year. It was not easy work, but I enjoyed helping people. One day, we saw a poor woman in the street. She was carrying her small son. Please, sir, how do I get to the hospital? My son's ill, and I do not know London. It is 5 kilometers, said Jerry. You cannot carry your son that far. I'll take you. You don't have to pay me.
In this
The
situation,
woman was
that
very
proves that
pleased.
Jerry was a kind man
But
also.
before she could get into the taxi, 2 men jumped up in front of her. Take us to Regent Street, called one of them. This woman is taking the taxi, said Jerry. Our business is important. We were first in the taxi.
احنا كنا
She
اول
can
اتنين دخلوا
wait.
خلاص.
Jerry looked at the men and then said, You can stay in the taxi as long as you want. I can wait while you rest yourselves. Then he turned to the poor woman and said, Don't worry, they'll soon be gone. Jerry was right. Soon the men angrily got out of the taxi and walked off down the road. Jerry then helped the woman into the taxi. We left the woman and her son at the hospital, and as we were leaving, a wealthy-looking woman
خدوا بالكم بقى من
pulled us
الست
over.
ديت.
Jerry Barker? Is it you? I'm pleased to find you here
This is Miss
because it's
Fowler.
difficult to find a taxi in this part of London. Chapter 6. My Final Home.
My final home اخر حاجه في بيتي بقى اللي انا هروحه بعد كده. اوكي، واخر بيت خلاص مش هقعد اتنقل تاني. طيب خد بالك قلنا ايه، ميسيس فاولر ديت هيبقى ليها دور بعد كده. جيري became ill, so he back to work or he worked for Mrs. Fowler. Okay, so they decided to sell Black Beauty again. هيضطروا يبيعوه تاني. Okay, الحصان ده عانى كتير جدا في اللي شافه في القصة ديت من كتر الاونرز او المالكين ليه. تمام كده يا جماعة. تعالوا بقى كده نبدأ تشابتر 6. اوكي. Let's start.
Jerry knew the woman, Mrs. Fowler, who was always very kind. When we arrived outside her house, she said to Jerry, "If ever you have any problems,
خدوا بالكم من
tell
الجملة
me.
دي، لو قابلتك
I
أي
can
مشاكل
always find work for a good driver,
هتلاقيني
and I
مستنياك.
know you are one of the best." There were problems in Jerry's life. Winter came, and soon there was a holiday for New Year. However, there was no holiday for the taxi drivers. We had a lot of work to do, taking people from house to house. One evening, Jerry was asked to take home a rich man from a large house in the west of London. He was asked to wait outside the house until the man was ready.
خدوا بالكم.
It was very cold,
The
and
weather
there was
was very
snow in
cold.
the air. We waited for more than an hour before the man finally came outside. He did not apologize and was angry when he had to give Jerry money for the time he waited outside in the street. This man changed our lives forever. When we finally arrived home that night, I was very cold and tired, but Jerry was worse. He coughed all the time. The next day, Harry came to feed me, but I was not put in the carriage. The same happened for 2 more days. I knew Jerry was very ill. Jerry slowly recovered, but the doctor told him not to drive taxis anymore if he wanted to stay healthy. So, Polly wrote to Mrs. Fowler and asked if
This doctor advised Jerry not to work as a taxi driver. So Jerry decided to sell Black Beauty. You understand? خدت بالكم؟ طيب نكمل.
she had any work for Jerry. A few days later, Mrs. Fowler wrote back. She wanted Jerry to work for her and said that the family could move to a small cottage near her house. This was very good news for the family, but bad news for me. I knew that they would sell me, and I was becoming old. Would I ever have such a happy home again? I was sold to another taxi driver called Skinner.
خدوا بالكم من
I
سكينر.
am sure that this was the same man who made Ginger so weak and sad. We worked 7 days a week, and I never had a good rest or enough to eat. One day, we waited outside a station for a train to arrive. A family of 4 asked Skinner to take them home with all their luggage. The daughter peered at me and said, "I don't think this poor horse can carry us and all our bags. He looks very weak." "He'll be fine," cried Skinner. "Don't worry about him." I tried to pull the carriage as fast as I could, but I was weak because I was given no breakfast. I wanted to go quickly, but when we started to climb a hill, I knew that I did not have enough energy. I thought that I could not breathe and suddenly fell onto the ground. I could not move, and I was sure that I was going to die. After some time, someone gave me water, and I slowly stood up. I was taken inside and given some food. A vet came.
خدوا بالكم بقى. A vet came to look at me. اوكي، خدوا بالك من الكلام اللي هيقوله. بيقولوا ان هو هيبقى محتاج طعام كويس وراحة. شوف رد سكينر. what did Skinner reply. اوكي، خد بالك منه، ده دليل he was a bad man and unkind man. right. خدوا بالكم من الكلمة اللي هيقولها. this comment was very important.
To look at me and told Skinner that I needed good food and rest. But Skinner said that I was no good if I couldn't work.
يعني لو ما اشتغلش، يعني انت مش هيبقى كويس غير لما يشتغل. تمام كده؟ تمام.
He decided to sell me.
هنا قرر يبيعه.
When I was well enough to travel, I was taken to another market for horses outside London. Once again, I was with horses of all ages and sizes. This time, I was put with the horses that were old or ill-looking. I did not think anyone would want to buy me now.
Okay, can I ask a question? What is the difference between the first one, the Black Beauty, went to the market, and the second one? What is the difference between?
ممكن انا اقول.
Okay, Hassan, go ahead.
اول الفيرست كانوا احصنه قويه وشكلها كويس، لكن ده كان تعبانين وحاله شكلهم حال.
Exactly. ماشي. سارة.
In the first time, they put it with the strong horses, and now they put it with the old horses and weak.
And old looked، يعني اللي بيان او wicked looked. اوكي، كنظرة ضعيفة او اللي هو شكله هزالي او مريض. اوكي، very good. Thank you Hassan. Thank you Sarah.
Oh. The people who looked at me were also very poor and wanted to buy a horse for as little money as possible. However, not all of the men were poor. An old farmer with a kind face
خد بالكم من
and his
العجوز ده.
grandson stopped to look at me. This one looks kind and intelligent, said the boy. Can we buy him? He's old, said the farmer. I'm sure he used to be a good horse, but there's not much he can do now. He's not as old as he looks, said the man who took me to the market. He was used for driving taxis and became ill. With a little rest, he'll be a good horse again. The farmer thought for a time, then decided to buy me. His grandson was delighted. My new owner was called Mr. Thorogood. He took me to a large field and I was given.
خدوا بالكم مستر ثاراجود دوت. مستر ثاراجود ده بلاك بيوتي هيقابل حد قديم قوي كان معاه من زمان. في الحالة دي هيبدأ يحس
اللي هو الواد اللي خلاه يعيط.
مين بقى يا أحمد؟ جو.
مش فاكره. ايوه
ده هيلبر.
الواد
فاكرين اللي هو كان في
صغير. ايوه جو جرين.
في جرين
اللي كان عنده 14 سنة.
ايوه بالظبط كده. he was bigger than. اوكي، دلوقتي كبر، بس هو ايه حس وشبع على الحصان. قال ايه ده؟ he has a star on his face, his leg was white. فاهم ازاي؟ بدأ يقول ده شبه البلاك بيوتي بالظبط. اوكي، خدوا بالكم. اوكي.
Good food every day. The grandson, Willie, looked after me very well. When spring came, I felt strong again, and they let me pull a small carriage. I'm pleased we bought this one, said Mr. Thorogood. He's a good horse and not old at all. The old farmer wanted to find me a place where I could work and took me to the home of Miss Bloomfield. She lived with her 2 sisters. We need a new horse,
احنا محتاجين
she
حصان.
said. But this one does not look very well. Look at his knees. He has had a difficult past, I'm sure, said the farmer. But you won't find a better horse than this. Try him. If you don't like him, I'll take him back. In the morning, a young man came to take me to their
هو ده
home.
الشاب.
He looked at me. He has a white foot and a white star on his forehead, like Black Beauty, he said. And healthy again. So here my story ends.
انا اقدر اقول لكم هي انتهت على ايه. قال ان هو باللحظه دي he was Jew. I remembered the old days. انا تذكرت الايام اللي انا كنت عايشها في سكواير جوردن. اوكي. وفي الحاله دي خلاص انا حسيت ان انا ايه المعاناه اللي انا كنت شفتها كل حياتي دي كلها بدات تنتهي خلاص دلوقتي. You understand؟ تمام؟ طيب تعالوا بقى كده، انا عندي سؤال او مجموعه اسئله عايز اسالها. لحظه. طيب اوكي. listen to me. First, why didn't Black Beauty recognize Joe Green at first? ليه Black Beauty لما شاف جو ده قال ان هو مش هو؟ اكيد فاهمين ازاي؟ because he was tall and strong man. يعني he get grow.
different.
كبر. ماشي. طيب في سؤال بقى انا عايز اساله دلوقتي. بيقول لي why do you think that Skinner made Black Beauty work so hard? Why do you think Skinner made Black Beauty work so hard?
Because he wants money, more money.
He wants only money. Okay. So he didn't look after the horses, any horses. Okay. Or any of his horses. Okay. طيب.
مستر عندي سؤال.
اتفضلي.
هي جينجر ماتت؟
ما ماتتش. بس هي راحت في حتة تانية. اوكي. تمام. طيب ممكن اسأل بقى سؤال جميل جدا للكل. Who was the character you liked most? Who was، خليني كده اروح كاتبها كده واقول لك السؤال كده للكل. اوكي. بيقول who was the character okay you like it most. You like it most. اوكي. يلا كده قول لي مين هي الشخصية اللي عجبتك اكتر. خد بالك كله يجهز لي بقى نفسه ويقول لي ليه برضو، يعني يديني for why or why not. اوكي ماشي. يلا. اوكي سارة go ahead. Who was the character you liked most in the story, all the story? What سارة؟
Mr. Jerry.
Mr. Jerry. Why يا Sarah? Why do you like
Because
him?
he was so kind man, and he looked after for his horses.
He looked after his horses. Okay. Thank you Sarah. ندى.
ممكن اقول؟
اوكي.
خلاص نقول الاول.
اوكي شاهد. قول يا شاهد. بعد
the
كده
old farmer.
the old farmer. Why?
Because he cared a black beauty, and he let him see uh, Joe Green.
So, because he helped Black Beauty to get Peter, right? You understand what I mean? Okay, Nada.
Mr. Jerry, because he was not just kind with people, he was also kind with horses.
You are agree with Sarah. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Okay, Nurhan. What is the most
أيوة.
character you like it?
Mrs. Jordan.
Miss Jordan. Why?
Because she named the black horse Black Beauty.
She called the Black Beauty the name. How they get him the name, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
فاتن. يحيى. عبد محسن. شباب يلا.
نعم.
قول يا عبد محسن. Who was the character you liked most, عبد أحمد؟
عارفة.
مين الشخصية اللي عجبتك من الآخر؟ وممكن تقول لي بالعربي عادي يعني. كذا وعملت كذا.
والله ما عنديش فكرة.
طيب مش انت قريت؟
سكوير جوردن.
مين؟
ايوه سكوير جوردن.
سكوير جوردن. واي؟
عشان اعتنى ببلاك بيوتي لفترة طويلة.
اوكي.
يعني لغاية ما اضطر ان هو يسيبه.
اوكي، ثانك يو احمد، ثانك يو. ماشي. ابو علي. ابو علي وبعديه الجهبذ يحيى وابو صلاح.
يا استاذ. ايوه استاذ.
قول ابو علي.
اقول ايه؟
Who was the character you liked most؟ ما كله هيجاوب على نفس السؤال يا جماعه. ايه الشخصيه اللي عجبتك وليه؟
مثلا يعني عادي اقول بلاك بيوتي
as you like.
تمام. بلاك بيوتي.
why يا حسن؟
because he is intelligent.
اوكي ماشي، ثانك يو حسن. صلاح. Who was the character you liked most؟
مفيش حد يا مستر.
خالص ولا حتى من المستمعين؟
لا.
ولا شخصية عجبتك أبو صلاح؟ طب أبو صلاح لو جالك السؤال ده في الامتحان هتقول له إيه؟
اكتب له nobody بس.
لا، طب ما أنت لازم تجيب لي واحدة وتبقى عارف إن هي دي، حتى لو أنت بص عارف أنت الدواء بيبقى مر بس هقوله، هاخده يعني بمعنى صح زي ما بنقول. طيب ماشي. يحيى. فاتن. طيب في ناس ممكن تقول لك بلاك بيوتي. اوكي، بلاك بيوتي هنقول ان انا ممكن لو انا حبيت اختار بلاك بيوتي he faced a miserable او a difficult life so I liked him. اوكي، ممكن اجي اقول لك he was the hero of the story. ده سبب برضه. اوكي، هقول ان هو strong handsome
أو كان صبور مثلا.
patient very good. شاهد patient harsh. اوكي، كل الكلام ده حلو جدا انا ممكن اقوله على بلاك بيوتي. ممكن اجي اتكلم على جوري. he was a kind man. he was handsome a good helper. جوري لما ساعد الست وساعد الناس a good helper. مثلا his family were kind. عيلته كانت طيبة. طيب في مين تاني عندك؟ مثلا في اللي هو الراجل اللي كان اشتراه وكان المساعد بتاعه فيلتشر اللي كان بياخد الاكل وبيبيعه، كان برضو راجل